What's up, everybody? Danny Segura here with a reaction video, a recap of UFC Fight Island 7, the event that we just witnessed in Abu Dhabi on Saturday. January 16th today? For those that don't know me, my name is Danny Segura. I am a mixed martial arts reporter. I work for MMAJunkie.com. And yes, I wasn't planning on doing one of these, but I mean, Jesus, after watching that event, which was so good, and not only that, but the Max Holloway performance, which we will get into in just a few moments, I had to talk about it. I mean, I just kept typing stuff over and over and over on Twitter, and it just wasn't enough to kind of recap and really put together what we saw on Saturday in Abu Dhabi. I mean, it was just ridiculous. It was an unreal performance by Max Holloway, and beyond that, we saw many, many more things. So I'm quickly gonna ramble, obviously, about the main results. Obviously, starting with the main event, Max Holloway versus Calvin Kattar, and then I'll move down the card. If you have questions at any point through this recap, reaction, whatever you want to call it, drop it on the YouTube live chat, and I'll feature it here in the video, and I'll get to it, and I'll answer it, and we will be talking some fights. All right, so a lot of fun stuff, man. So let's talk about that main event. Jesus Christ, a featherweight matchup pitting Max Holloway, the former champion, against rising contender Calvin Kattar, one of the toughest guys really in the UFC today. Unreal. I mean, I frankly don't know if I have the words to put together what that performance meant, not only for Max Holloway's career, but just what it meant for MMA in general. Truly one of the best performances I've ever seen throughout my time covering the sport. And I've been doing it professionally for 5 years. Before that, a little bit, I guess, on a more amateur level while I was in college and all that. And then obviously prior to that, I was just a fan, but really just unreal. I mean, this is by far a historical performance in the featherweight division, a historical performance in Max Holloway's career. I mean, just looking better than that is just probably not possible, and if so, we just don't know what it looks like, because that is firing on all cylinders. That is being in your prime. That is being fully in control of the fight. I mean, Max Holloway just looked amazing. It was truly, truly a remarkable performance. I mean, it was so, so good. And it kind of sucks in a way, because it was a bad outing from Calvin Kattar, in the sense that, you know, he looked quite bad. I mean, at some point, Max Holloway was having a full-on conversation with the commentators and still fighting him. And yet, you know, he was still teeing off on him and landing some good shots. And by no means is Calvin Kattar a bad fighter. Quite the opposite. He's great. He's one of the best in that division. But Max Holloway just proved tonight that he is reaching other levels. And look, this is a guy that's not even 30 years old. He just turned 29, like a month or two ago. So he really is. We thought he was in his prime when he was champion, because usually once you win a belt, that's when you're in your prime. But it feels to me that we're really entering Max Holloway 2.0. What we saw before, it was a pretty good fighter, a world-class fighter. But frankly, there's much more to Max Holloway. I mean, this performance is just ridiculous, out of this world. Now, we saw a bit of a vintage Max Holloway, in the sense of obviously a lot of volume striking. He didn't reinvent the wheel, in the sense that he's taking people down and using his grappling ground and pound. No, we saw a very Max Holloway-like performance, in the sense that he stood there, did some striking, had high volume. However, here were the key differences. Number one was the pop. I think that's what, to me, I noticed right away. I mean, those punches were hurting Kattar, and keep in mind, Kattar has a fantastic chin. Has he ever been finished? Let me double check on that. Likely not. Yeah, so he's got 5 defeats, and he only won by submission, 4 by decision. He's never actually been stopped via strikes, and I mean, he's faced some pretty tough dudes, right? Ricardo Lamas hits pretty hard. Jeremy Stevens hits pretty hard. Moicano hits pretty hard. Shane Burgos hits hard. Andre Fili hits hard, and the list goes on. So yeah, I mean, the fact that Holloway was stinging him with punches, and you can see that he was hurt, that was a big changer in Max Holloway's performance. I feel like he's always been a volume striker, but never really had that much power. Not that he had little power, it's just really volume was what made up his style. But this time around, we really saw that here's a Max Holloway that can put away people. I mean, that kind of power, those kind of shots, the timing, the amount, that usually stops people, right? But we're talking about one of the toughest dudes in the UFC today, Calvin Kattar. So I would say most or a good majority of featherweights would have folded at some point. Probably in the fourth round would have folded for sure. I mean, what we saw was a crazy beating. I mean, I was advocating for the towel to be thrown in. I thought by round 4, we got a good picture on who was the best fighter and how the fight was going to go. Didn't really see a need for round 5, and clearly, by the way that round went, it proved it. It's not like, he was losing, but then you can see him having success in some areas where you go, okay, this thing over. No, by the 4th round, we pretty much saw who the better fighter was at that point, and by a lot. So yeah, just crazy performance by Max Holloway. I mean, it just mind blown. Here you think like, hey, going into this fight, you're thinking maybe he should have gone up to 155, bulk up a little bit, lost twice to Volkanovski. Last one was a bit controversial, but still, it kind of seems like once you have 2 losses against the champ, it's tough to, get back to that spot. And then on top of that, there are no real maybe challengers that you could see threaten Volkanovski and take that title away. So maybe, mix things up for Holloway. So I think for me, I kind of thought maybe a 155 would make sense, but after watching this performance, I think it changes completely the conversation, and I really want to see that Volkanovski rematch, or trilogy, really. The Max Holloway that we saw tonight is a different Max Holloway than the one we saw in the first 2 outings with Volkanovski. Now, Volkanovski can make leaps and make big improvements and make that fight even beat him a 3rd time. Well, who knows? But Max Holloway's improving by a lot. And yeah, I want to see him fight the champion. But anyways, so I'm going to quickly scroll through the YouTube live chat and take care of the questions anybody has about that main event. Do you think Max came out so strong because he wanted a quick finish to stay fresh for the next week? No. I don't think so. I think that'd be a little bit disrespecting Calvin Kattar, and by all means, he took that challenge very seriously. I mean, even after the fact, which was a pretty dominant fight, he was still saying how in the post-fight show on ESPN, he was saying how seriously he was taking Kattar, and still gave him a lot of props. Look, that dude's dangerous. No, I think, he's making some changes. I noted that one change was he looks like he has a lot more pop in his punches. A second change that I didn't mention is he usually starts slow. He takes maybe the first round and a half off a little bit just to kind of gauge his distance, warm up to the fight, get the timing of his opponent and all that. But this was different. From the moment the bell rang, he was just on it the entire time, on it, and just looked amazing. And look, that certainly cost him a little bit in the Volkanovski fight. Remember, he started giving up the lead early in the first one. I think the second one, he started a little quicker than he did in the first outing. But I think these are changes that Holloway, look, a fighter that's very young, still just 29, evolving, clearly in his prime, as we saw tonight. He's making changes, and one of them is starting early, and especially if you want to win decisions. Because, look, he's very good, but he knows he's at a level where he can't just put away guys that easily, because at that high level, world-class level in the UFC, it's just tough to get guys out of there. Obviously, Kattar proved that tonight. Even if you can't match them technically, they're still so tough that they're just hard to get out. So you can put a beating on them. You can, win 10-8 rounds, all through 25 minutes of fighting and still not get them out. So I think he noticed that he needs to start a bit earlier, and that's what we saw tonight. But no, by no means I think he was keeping in mind next week's fight with Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier, just because, look, Kattar was legit. I mean, if you're overlooking that guy, you're making a serious mistake, and Holloway is not that type of guy. However, things worked out, and look, if one of those guys were to pull out of the fight, whether it's McGregor or Poirier, if Holloway is eligible to compete, because remember, he still has to go through medicals, and likely he's going to get a suspension. I don't think it'll be highly likely that he'll fight next week if something were to happen. I mean, usually with that type of war, because remember, he did take some shots from Kattar, some pretty good shots as well. He'll probably be out at least 30 days with no contact, in my opinion. We'll see exactly what the verdict is. But I don't think there's a good chance of him stepping up next week if something were to happen. But yeah, Max Holloway just looking just ridiculously good. I mean, what a performance. It was just insane. And yeah, it was just blown away. Unreal. We'll see what's next for him. I mean, it's tough. With that type of performance, you can't argue a trilogy with Volkanovski, but at the same time, I understand why Volkanovski wants to fight, other challengers. I believe he's taking on Ortega, right? So we'll see what happens there. Obviously, if Ortega wins, it'll be an easy fight as far as easy to make for Max Holloway. But even then, I think with this type of performance, even if Volkanovski were to retain his title, I mean, you want to see the best featherweight challenge the champion. That's what the number one contender means. That's what this game is about. You get a champion, you try to find the best guys in the world, and you try to get those guys to, dethrone the champ. It's King of the Hill. That's the name of the game. And at this point in time, obviously we got an Ortega-Volkanovski fight booked, but at this point in time, not counting Ortega, Max Holloway is the best damn fighter at 145 pounds, not counting the champion. That's who should be next for fighting for the belt, whether it's Ortega or Volkanovski. That's what should happen next. But yeah, just unreal performance. Unreal. If Volkanovski beats Ortega, do they go Max versus Zabit next? I mean, look, Kate, you could make an argument that if that first fight, or that only fight really, with Kattar and Zabit would have gone 5 rounds, I have a pretty strong confidence, and I feel pretty confident in saying that Kattar would have won. I mean, he really started stepping it up in the 3rd round, and it just looked downhill from Zabit. Now, credit to Zabit, I mean, he did sign a contract for a 3-round fight, so that could have very well been the strategy, and if he would have signed a fight for 5 rounds, maybe his strategy would have been different, and he still would have won a decision. We don't know, right? But all in all, we saw a fairly even fight, right? Keeping in mind how good Kattar was looking late, right? By no means, and I don't mean any disrespect to Zabit, I think he's a fantastic fighter, but I think Max Holloway beats him pretty convincingly, just as bad as he did Kattar. I mean, what we saw today from Max Holloway is just next level stuff. And again, Zabit can always make the improvements. Zabit can always, he's a young fighter as well. I'm sure he's evolving, but just wow. I mean, just Holloway's performance tonight was something else. So yeah, no, I don't see that fight next. I think Holloway should hold out for a title shot, really. I mean, after you do that to Calvin Kattar, after you look that way, you don't need to prove anything else. You are eligible to fight for the belt, really. Unless he wants to go up to 155, I wouldn't hate that. Imagine if Conor, say, were to, I don't know, somehow get back to Max Holloway, or actually Max Holloway get back to Conor. I think that'd be kind of interesting. Max Holloway did mention during fight week that he'd be interested at some point in that rematch with Conor McGregor. Both fighters have evolved ridiculously since they first fought, way back when, I think that was in Boston they fought, actually. That must have been like 2014 maybe. And yeah, it's been a good while. So I'd love to see that rematch at some point. I just talked about how good Max Holloway looked at 145. I don't think he needs to move up to 155. I think, he has a good shot at beating Volkanovski with that performance. But if he were to say, hey, no, I'm moving up to 155, I wouldn't hate that at all. It would just add more fire to that division. So I'd be about it, but we'll see what's next for him. I think it's either a big fight at 155 or he fights for the title at 145 pounds. I think, that's just what makes sense. I mean, you just can't deny the man a fight for the belt after looking the way he did at UFC Fight Island 7. You just can't. This was hands down Max's best performance. Round 4 was probably the craziest round of all time. How did Calvin keep standing? Yeah, I mean, the guy's just ridiculously tough. It came down to he was just in that fight because of how durable he is in his toughness. I mean, I'm sure obviously a technical aspect as well, because he was defending a fighter that has no skills, would have gotten knocked out by Max Holloway. He was still, in there and doing his best at defending Max Holloway's overwhelming just onslaught, right? But even then, I think by fourth round, as I mentioned a few minutes ago, it was pretty clear who was in control, who was going to win, and who was the better fighter, right? And ultimately, as a coach, I believe, as a corner, obviously I'm not one, but you would want your fighter to win and get places through technique, right? Through being the best, not through toughness. He can always land that Hail Mary, but it just didn't look like it was going to happen. So at that point in time, it's like, okay, look, we got some things to work on. There's clearly some catching up to do as far as technique at 145 pounds. Again, I'm not talking bad about Calvin. I think he's a fantastic fighter. The New England cartel has been killing it. But Max Holloway was the better fighter that night. I mean, there's no way around that, right? So I think, that fight in round 4 should have been stopped. At that point, there was nothing else to prove. I had it 50-40, 3-10-8, and a 10-7 round in round 4. It makes sense. It was, I definitely saw that 10-7 would have, if you're going to judge around 10-7, which very few come by in MMA, that's it. That's the round. And I believe I scored the second round 10-8. Trying to think what other 10-8 round. 3, I think, was probably Kattar's best round. He did kind of turn it up, started marching Holloway down a bit, cracked him a couple of times. I think that was his best round. But round 1, he lost that pretty convincingly. 2, as he said, that was a 10-8. 3, he did a little better, but still 10-9. 4th was definitely, I think, at the very least 10-8, but I think you're right about 10-7. And then the 5th was probably likely either a 10-9 or 10-8, but you're not off, Simon, by the judging. Let's see. Terrence Levriette, shouts out to Terrence. If a fight fell out next week, who would you like to see Max fight more out of the 4 lightweights? That's a good one. Probably Conor. I think that'd be fun. I think the rematch obviously would be a lot different. I think they're both very different fighters now than they were back then when they first fought. Obviously, I wouldn't like for Conor to fall out because, Conor's the biggest star in the sport. I'd obviously like to see him back in the cage. And, I'm also have a lot of questions about Conor. I don't have any questions about Poirier. I know exactly who Poirier is. I do have some questions about Conor. I mean, he's looking extremely jacked. He's looking extremely in shape. I wonder if there's another gear to him because we know how crazy he is in the sense of how obsessed he is about the fight game, how obsessed he can be and get, and how much he can improve and how good he can really be. However, he's had outside distractions that have hurt his career in the past. So, it all looks good. Everything checks all the boxes, but, it's time to see him perform and see if really what you see in the check boxes really, really plays out, right? So I'd like to see him against Conor. Obviously, as I mentioned, I think that's very unlikely. Kattar did land some good shots. Max Holloway left pretty fresh, but, not enough for to escape a suspension. I think a suspension is coming his way with no contact, at least 20 or 30 days. So I don't see him, again, being a replacement opponent for any of the lightweight fights. But if it were the case, I would do the Conor rematch. But knock on wood, no fighter gets injured, and we see all those 4 lightweight bouts. All right. I think that's okay. When are all you media members gonna grow a pair, huh? Funny. And start calling out Herb Dean. That man is making Rory McDonald's out of our young fighters. First of all, tons have been made about Herb Dean's refereeing in the past. Not just Herb Dean, but other referees as well. Maybe you need to read more, but he's been criticized plenty by the media in the past. But it ain't his job to stop the fight solely. The corner has a responsibility here as well. Look, Kattar's so tough that it looked like he was in there. Till the very end. They interviewed him and he seemed well. He does have that power, right? Again, I'm not excusing Herb Dean. I think the fight should have been stopped, but I think this is more on the corner because I think if you do a test, I think Kattar's there. I think, that's how good and tough that guy is, that he was still in the fight in the sense of being in there, right? It wasn't like he's concussed and his mind is somewhere else. I really genuinely think he was in there. However, like I said, at that point in time, and I think this is more to blame on the corner and the referee, is like, what else is there to prove? I think by this point in time, it's pretty clear who the better fighter is and who's going to win. Look, live to fight another day, right? If this were towards the end of your career and this is for the belt and, there's no second chapter or third or fourth or whatever stage the fighter's in, maybe you let it play out a little bit more. But clearly, Kattar he's got a bright future. He's got a lot left to give. I'm sure this is by no means the last we see of him, or at least at any main event or any high-profile fight. He's definitely going to fight his way back, get some good wins, and eventually be at the top and be fighting top fighter guys, top guys like Max Holloway and others. So this is one of those things where live to fight another day. I think it falls a little bit more in the corner than the referee, Boumassar, to answer your question. Let's see here. We can always circle back to this. Let's see. Okay, I'll answer this one. Justin Carter donating to the Super Chat. You can always support this channel by throwing some money my way on the Super Chat. All the money goes to improving this experience, this channel. So Justin wants to know, do you think we saw another Dillashaw Barao situation where we watch a guy get his career beat out of him? No, I really don't. Again, like I said, Kattar looked like, again, he was going back to the corner and they were giving him advice and he was following it. Like, he looked in there. Barao looked out of it. He was just on autopilot the entire time, cruise control. He was just doing what his body's used to doing, but by no means was there a process of thinking on how to win the fight. He was out of it. He got hurt really bad. Again, he got dropped in that fight, and then he recovered, but recovered in the sense of got back to his feet and then never fully recovered. Kattar never got dropped in this one. He looked wobbled a little bit at some points in time, but he didn't look like he didn't know what was going on. I mean, after the rounds ended, he went back to his corner, sat down, listened, and tried to readjust. But he just wasn't able to do it against Holloway. Holloway is that good, but he was certainly in there. Again, I think the beating could have been saved a little bit in that fourth. It should have been stopped by the corner. But no, I don't think this was a Dillashaw Barao situation. The Dillashaw Barao situation was a bit worse. Was a lot worse. Barao just looked out of it. He looked in autopilot the entire time. He wasn't in that fight. He wasn't in that octagon that night. So yeah. But again, he did take some punches. That's damage that you take. And maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive right now. That story from MMA Fighting came out about the CTE, or about the issues that Spencer Fisher's having, and reading that, it's tough. You're reminded of the price these fighters pay for glory, for money, for pursuing their dreams, pursuing their passion, for our entertainment, and it's a hefty price. So I would like to see in 2021 fights get stopped a little longer. I mean, a little sooner. And you see that in boxing all the time. It's not about, is the guy ineligible to continue? Boxing stoppages don't work that way. Now, that's one of them. That's the very last. But it really comes down to, is the fighter capable skills-wise of winning the fight? Like has he shown a path, a victory of potentially winning the fight, right? And I don't think we saw that with Calvin Kattar that night. Certainly by round 4, you got the gist of it. You got the whole picture. You're like, okay, Holloway's at a different level. He just is. That's the truth. So no, I don't think this was a Barao situation. Knock on wood. Hopefully Kattar is completely fine from this fight and he's as healthy as he can be. All right, amazing fight. I think I can sit here and just talk hours on how good Max Holloway looked and how tough Kattar is. I definitely can talk a little bit more about the fight if you guys want a little later in this video, but I do want to get to other results that happened that I think were pretty important and worth talking about. So let's get into it. So co-main event. Pretty damn good co-main event. We saw Carlos Conde defeat Matt Brown via unanimous decision, 30-27 across all judges' scorecards. Like, scored it 29-28. Still Conde winning, but I thought Matt Brown took that first round. I think that was pretty clear from me watching it. What can I say? Condit looked great. I think I mentioned this on Twitter. This is a great example of why the Legends division should exist. Now, I don't suggest it being an actual thing and having separate rankings and whatnot, and an age limit where, like, hey, look, you're over 34. Now you gotta, you can't fight any younglings per se, but I think there should be like an unspoken thing about how matchmaking is done. Now, from time to time, I think it's important to have fights where a prospect takes on a veteran. That's how you build prospects, and it's just part of the fight game. But I don't think we see enough of the Legends divisions fights, and I think this was a clear example. I think if you're really trying to get the best out of an aging fighter, I think this is the way to do it. Matchmaking. That looked like a perfectly fine fight. I didn't feel bad, but watching either fighter fight. It's not like they were getting knocked out by some 26-year-old coming up through the ranks. It was competitive. That's all you can ask for a fight. It was high level. Clearly, these guys are legit, obviously. Yes, they're older, but they're still very, very good fighters. And it just so happens to be, if you pit them against each other, you can get a really, really fun fight, entertain a lot of fans, and yeah, just have a pretty solid card. Obviously, their name value also adds to the event as well. So yeah, I absolutely love this fight. Very interesting stuff. Carlos Conde ends his UFC contract because this was the last fight on his deal with a victory. Now he's on a 2-fight winning streak over some decent names, Matt Brown and Court McGee prior to that. And the guy's looking good. So who knows what's going to happen with Carlos Conde? It seems to me he's a bit of a company guy. He likes fighting for the UFC, and it seems the UFC likes him very much as well. I think they keep him around. I think if he would have lost maybe his previous fights, if he would have looked terribly against McGee, which he didn't, and he would have lost badly against Matt Brown, I think they would have been like, okay, Condit, like, your time is now. You got to go. But I don't think this was the case. I think he looked good, and I think he still has a lot left in the tank. It's just about getting the right matchups. And I think if the match them up properly, you can get some fun fights. Obviously, that Nick Diaz fight is there. If he ever comes back, I wouldn't mind seeing it all fight with Nate Diaz. I think that'd be a lot of fun too. Robbie Lawler's there, if you want to run that back. And, there's a few veteran names that could be fun. One of them could be Ponzinibbio, right? Ponzinibbio, we can talk about him a little later after this. Ponzinibbio took a pretty bad loss, but I suspect he's not going to retire. He's going to keep on fighting. And he's a veteran. He's been around. He's a good striker, so that could be fun. Condit's got options. Now, if he were to go to Bellator or any other promotion, I think I'd have a lot of interest in seeing him in Bellator. Imagine Condit versus Paul Daly. Jesus, that would be amazing. Condit versus MVP, that would be a lot of fun too. I don't know if I want to see him against Douglas Lima, but certainly I think there's a lot of good fighters at 170 that could be fun matchups. So I'd be in for a Carlos Condit move to Bellator. Why not? That'd be fun as well. But we'll see what happens. Certainly interesting times for the natural born killer. As far as Matt Brown, look, I think he's 40 years old. I think, it's probably smart to call it quits. I mean, what else are you going to achieve now if you're fighting to make money? Because that's how you make a living, and totally understandable. Now he has an academy as well. He teaches, but, if you want to make a little bit more money and get some fights in, and you're still in love with the game, why not? I don't think he looked terribly in that fight. He's still a skilled fighter. He's got a bit of gas in the tank, but, again, you always pay a price physically when you step in there. So I think it's always better to walk away if sort of the better days are over, right? But by all means, this is a free country, and if the man wants to fight and make a living that way, I think he should. Just as long as he's matched up properly. I think matchups like Carlos Condit and others are fun, are good. I don't want to see him against, a Miguel Baeza like the previous fight where he got TKO'd in the second. Prior to that, he fought Ben Saunders. I think that's a fine matchup. He fought Donald Cerrone. That's a fine matchup. Jake Ellenberger, Damian Maia. I mean, that's the type of fights that he should be in. So yeah, but great stuff from Carlos Conde. He really looked good. I really enjoyed that fight. It was a fun fight. It wasn't like the Max Holloway where it's just excitement through the roof. Obviously, it wasn't like a fight of the year contender, but it was that nice level where like it keeps you engaged the entire time, and you're just like, okay, this is fun. This is good. It ain't super crazy, but I loved it. I thought it was good. Let's see here. Yeah, this is funny. What do you think of Dana calling grown men with families and mortgages to pay kid? Yeah, it's like, a kid is, Chase Hooper. A kid is, who else is young? I mean, like a Macy Barber, right? Like early 20s. That's a kid. I mean, I'm 28, and I thought I was all grown up when I was 22, 23. But looking back, I'm like, dude, that's a kid. You're a child at 2022. Like, you don't know anything. No disrespect, but you really get a good grasp of humanity and life, what life really is in just the world, I think, in your mid-20s and later 20s. I mean, I'm still am, obviously, but like I say, I pay rent. I pay bills. I'm no kid. You know what I'm saying? I pay taxes, So yeah, I think it's funny. I think it's just like a thing you do, like, probably in the as a promoter, like the kid, Obviously Dana's much older than I am and much older than most fighters. How old is Dana? Probably in his 50s, right? But yeah, that's funny. Man, when did the fight? A couple hours ago? Yeah, probably. The fight ended at 6 p.m. more or less, or the broadcast about. But yeah, literally UFC Fight Island 7 just wrapped up. All right, I'm gonna talk a couple other results. Obviously, Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's Argentine, and since I'm really putting a focus on coverage of the Latin American scene, that is obviously up my alley. So I'm gonna talk about that result and the Jocelyn Edwards just a little bit. She's from Panama. I actually talked to her recently. And that's about it. Talk about a little bit about Joaquin Buckley as well. If anybody has any questions about anything else or about those fights and want me to elaborate a little more, throw that on the YouTube live chat and I'll get to it. Sounds good. But real quickly, Li Jingliang, the Leech. I love him. I love the fighter. I think he's amazing. The Leech is just an amazing nickname. Great dude. I've interviewed him before in the past. And I've always loved his style. And I always thought he's a very underrated fighter at 170. Will he ever fight for a title? I doubt it. Will he ever be champion? Obviously, probably not. But I think that's a guy that against anybody, even the champion, he can present a lot of issues. He's no easy fight to anybody. He's strong as shit, great wrestler, has knockout power, competent striker, and tough as shit and hard to put away. And that's a recipe to give anybody problems and for anybody to take seriously, right? But even then, I think, he has some limitations. Like I said, I don't see him being champion. But even with those limitations, like I said, I think he's a very, very solid fighter, and I think he's very underrated. And he can beat very, very great fighters, Santiago Ponzinibbio being one of them. He knocked him out in the first round. And like I said, this is a cruel sport, man. Ponzinibbio literally went to hell and back to get to the spot. I mean, I've been interviewing the guy for some time, and he had a really, really bad infection that almost got to his bone. I mean, the guy almost died. He was battling that infection for almost a year, really. He was out. The last time he fought prior to tonight was on November of 2018. So think about that. So he fought for his life, finally healthy and being eligible to fight. The pandemic hits. Obviously, all MMA, all sports came to a halt. He couldn't fight. Then things start to resume. He was helping Dustin Poirier. He told me this. He was helping Dustin Poirier prepare for Dan Hooker because they're ATT teammates. And he broke his toe helping him. So he was out for some time, couldn't train. Finally gets back to training, kind of gets in the groove of things. Tests positive for COVID-19. Tested for COVID for an entire month. Tested positive. This ain't, for those people, it's like, I'll be fine for 7 days, 10 days tops. You don't know that. Some people test positive for a while. He tested positive for an entire month, man. And then he was finally healthy and Obviously, getting him a fight, takes some time. Obviously, you got to see who's available. Then, obviously, the UFC had a little break. And finally, he returned here at UFC Fight Island 7 just to get knocked out after all that in the first round. So it's brutal. Ponzinibbio is a fantastic commentator over at UFC Español. If you speak Spanish and have listened to the broadcast, he's very good, in my opinion. He might be the best. Great mind, super nice guy, very skilled fighter. But that's how this sports work. This sport is ruthless, it's cruel, and it doesn't discriminate. It has no mercy. So obviously Santiago Ponzinibbio got a taste of that tonight. But like you said, I think the guy's very good. He did look decent prior to getting knocked out. Obviously, it was a first round knockout, so there's not much to judge him on. But I have a feeling that he'll be back and he'll pick up some important wins. I don't think this is it for Ponzinibbio. I think he has a lot left to give in this sport. And as far as the Leech, look, the Leech is a great fighter. I mean, who can you put him up against? I think he's a really fun fighter to watch. He's got a pretty solid streak. I mean, he's let's see here. He's 1, 2, 3, 4. He's 4-1 in his last 5 bouts. So that's pretty good. And it goes beyond that. He's also 5, 6, 7, 8. He's 8-2 in his last 10. So not bad at all. And a lot of performance of the night bonuses, really, in his last, let's see here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. In his last 8 fights, he has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 performance of the night bonuses in his last 8. So pretty impressive stuff from the Leech. Look, you beat Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is a pretty damn good fighter. Stopped and ended his 7-fight winning streak. I think he should get a big name. Let's see here. Who's available for him? Maybe Jeff Neal, right? I know he's coming off a loss, but it's still a good bout. It's still a big name, a guy who's up there among the best at 170. I think that'd be interesting. Let me pull up the UFC rankings. I really do think the Leech should get a good name. Now, I know I said, I don't see him fighting for a title, but you can never count anybody out, right? And if they're picking up important wins, you gotta escalate that. You know what I'm saying? So, it's one of those things like innocent until proven guilty, right? Again, that's my thought. I don't think he'll be champion, but never say never. We've seen fighters that were never on the radar and they turn things around and get gold in the UFC. So who knows? Match him up against a top guy and see where he's at. So let's see. Here are the welterweight rankings. A fight with Damian Maia would be a lot of fun, actually. The Leech is a very good grappler, very stubborn wrestler, and I mean stubborn in the good way. I think a fight with Damian Maia would be a little bit of a clash of styles. That would be kind of fun. Jeff Neal, as you mentioned, would be fun. You got to be kidding me. Conor McGregor is ranked at number 15 at welterweight. It's ridiculous. But yeah, I think Jeff Neal is a good one, or Damian Maia. I think that'd be fun as well. Tyron Woodley would be kind of cool as well, but I don't think Woodley would take that fight. He's probably looking at bigger names, and obviously he's in the top 10. He's ranked at number 6 right now. I don't think he'd take a fight with an unranked fighter. You know what I'm saying? So we'll see. But yeah, I think Jeff Neal or Damian Maia would be fun. All right, now real quickly about, I want to talk about a couple other results. Obviously, Alessio Di Chirico, I believe that's how you pronounce his last name, defeated Joaquin Buckley in the first round, also via knockout. Very beautiful knockout via head kick. It sucks, man. It sucks for Buckley. I think he had a lot of hype, obviously, with that viral KO that he had over Impa Kasanganay, one of the greatest knockouts we've ever seen in MMA. Obviously, MMA Junkies 2020 knockout of the year. It sucks, man. It sucks, but that's, again, much like the Ponzinibbio situation. This is how this game works, and I'm sure he's going to be back at some point, knocking fools out left and right later this year in 2021. But yeah, obviously a big loss there. He had a lot of hype, and he had picked up a couple of good victories, obviously with that knockout of the year, and then he also put away who did he put away in his last fight? Jordan Wright, and he did it in the second round and looked good doing it. Di Chirico, he really needed that win. He was coming off 3 losses, so interesting stuff there. I don't really feel strongly about who he should fight next. I don't really have a strong opinion on that. But I did think I do have a strong opinion on what he said post-fight. In case you guys didn't know, he basically said like something like, I'm not gonna take any questions. I'm done here because I don't think that you guys should only interview winners. I'm guessing he got a little bit offended that he maybe wasn't interviewed post-fight in his last 3 performances because he lost. And he said, the sport involves 2 people, a winner and a loser, and you guys should only talk to winners. I'm not going to take any questions. Peace. And I think that tells me, and I see it all the time, not only with him, so, it's not nothing personal. I'm not trying to take a shot at him for taking a shot at the media, at me and my fellow media members. But this is something that, people don't really understand or have a full grasp of what the media does. And I think it's very easy today in 2021. And I think other people have put on a precedent that, you just blame the media. And sure, the media has a lot of shortcomings and the media is not perfect. And there's always room to improve as far as what the media does and doesn't do. But this ain't one of them. The media talks to whoever the UFC brings backstage. If it's a title fight and it's a main event and the loser, is not too beat up or doesn't need to go to the hospital, they'll take them backstage. They'll take them to the post-fight press conference unless they object. But Dominic Cruz, he lost. Remember, he's got that really famous post-fight interview where he had lost his title and yet, like a champion, very gracefully, he talked to the media. The media will talk to anybody they put in there. So it's not a media thing. That's the UFC's decision to not bring fighters to the post-fight press conference. Fighters that lose. And for the most part, that's precautionary reasons, right? Usually the fighter that loses gets hurt, right? They lose. Obviously, there's the case where the winner gets into a crazy fight of the night and they get transported to the hospital as well, and they're not interviewed by the media after. But for the most part, if they're good physically and health-wise, if they pass the medicals, they'll go to the post-fight press conference and the media will talk to whoever the UFC brings there. So the media interviews losers, but the losers that the UFC picks and brings back there. So it ain't a media problem. And also, you got to keep in mind is, do you really want to talk to a fighter that's concussed? Do you really want to talk to a fighter that got knocked out, who's obviously taking a big loss? You know what I'm saying? Some fighters, emotionally, they're okay to talk about their defeat. Some others want to be left alone, and you got to respect that as well. But anyways, if you would understand that it's the UFC who brings the fighters backstage and not the media doesn't pick and choose, I think his comments would change and would be a bit differently. But yeah, anyhow. Real quickly, also, I did want to talk about one more fight. Jocelyn Edwards from Panama defeated Wu Yanan via unanimous decision. I had her winning 30-27. 2 judges agreed. Another judge gave her Edwards the 29-28. I just want to mention this because I said, obviously I'm from Colombia. I'm a Hispanic reporter, and I sort of, my beat is to focus on the Latin American scene. And I wanted to point this out because it's historic. She becomes the first woman from Panama to fight in the UFC and the first fighter from Panama, regardless of gender, that picked up a victory in the UFC. So historic stuff there from Edwards. She actually knows the only fighter from Panama that competed in the UFC, Humberto Brown, back in 2014. She knows from Panama, obviously. So that just talks about the evolution of the sport, right? She trains at a King's MMA in El Paso, Texas, under Victor Davila, who is a 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu black belt. Also, still commentator, I believe, for UFC Español, the broadcast. Very nice guy. And she seems to be legit. I mean, she took that fight on short notice. I believe she fights at a lower weight class. I believe she fights at 125, not 135. So she fought a weight class above, and she still looked pretty damn good. So keep an eye on Jocelyn. I think, she's only 25. She's 10-2. Got a good record. Just keep an eye on her. I think she could do some stuff here in the UFC and have a lengthy career. We'll see, but certainly a good start. Short notice, convincing win. All right. Anybody have any questions? Now's your time. I believe Justin Carter has another one from the super chat. Thank you very much. This could be about anything, really. But I'll take a few more questions and then dip out. So Justin wants to know, do you think with Max, we just saw a Conor Alvarez or Dillashaw Lineker situation where they hit their apex but can't reach that level again? Look, only time will tell. Maybe this is the best performance of his career and we'll see maybe a slight drop off, or maybe Calvin Kattar was the right dancing partner to truly bring out the very best out of Max Holloway. Maybe that happens. There's certain styles that fighters just respond a lot better to and look a lot better fighting against. Maybe Calvin Kattar was one of them, but I don't think so, man. That to me looked like a guy who's hitting another gear in his career, if I'm being quite honest. Like I said, I thought what we were seeing out of Max Holloway during his title reign, which was very good, and also to it, was prime Max Holloway. But I think I'm wrong here. I think there's another gear that we're unaware of. And Max Holloway's starting to hit it. Because remember, he's making some adjustment in his training camp. It's not like he's doing everything the same and this just happened to be a good performance. No, the man's making changes. And it seems that they're reflecting in his performance. So I really do think we're seeing another gear of Max Holloway. If you thought you saw the best of Max Holloway, I think you're wrong. I think he's truly entering his prime now. And it's scary. It's scary if you're in the featherweight division or even 155. But yeah, I think we're gonna see another gear of Max Holloway. We'll see exactly what goes down. Obviously, you know, there's still a lot left of Max Holloway. We'll see how he looks in his next few performances. But my hunch is this is Max Holloway 3.0, 2.0, whatever you want to call it. I think 2.0 was after the Conor loss, and then he went on that crazy win streak and won the title. This is 3.0 for sure. So yeah, we'll see, but I don't think this is a situation where, you know, we'll see a drop-off or this was the very best of him and we'll see now what we saw before. No, I think this is another gear here, Justin. Appreciate you donating to the Super Chat. All right, so I'll take a couple more questions and dip out. Speak the truth, Danny. You already know. Every day I'm out here giving you guys the best damn content on YouTube. Sorry, by the way, for the last few Q&As. I believe last week I didn't do one, and this week I didn't do one as well. Just been busy a lot. Just been pretty busy. So I don't know. I'll have to think about that one as well. I don't know if I'm going to do them again. I know it's a little bit of news. But I'll do them a couple more, and then we'll see. But I do want to change some things up. I don't want to continue them the way I was doing them, to be quite honest. So some changes coming, whether I'm going to stop completely or I'm going to do a change. I will do these from time to time as far as reaction to news or to cards like this. So, you know, don't unsubscribe. It's not like, you know, content's not coming your way. But I do got to rethink how I'm doing my weekly live Q&As. I just feel like a lot of people do them. A lot of media outlets do them. Obviously, they're very easy to do, right? It's just answering questions. But I'd like to reinvent the format into something new, something fresh, something a little bit more personal, something more me. You know what I'm saying? So some changes will come. But I got you always with that fire analysis. You know how it is. All right, let's see here. Does Max Holloway have the best chin in the entire roster? I don't see another fighter better than his. I would disagree with that. I mean, I think Max Holloway has a good chin. He has a pretty damn good chin, but I don't think the best in the roster. I mean, there's got to be other guys. I mean, Dustin Poirier. I mean, he's been knocked out before, right? But he's pretty damn durable. Gaethje's pretty damn durable. Ferguson is pretty damn durable. I mean, you can't get that. You can't knock that guy out. I'm trying to think exactly like who really has like a granite chin, who just you can't put away. Nunes has a great chin. Trying to think. Who has historically like a stupid chin? Currently active, of course. That's a good question. Max Holloway's definitely up there, but I really do think there's got to be somebody else up there. Kattar's got a stupid chin. I mean, look at the punishment that he took tonight. I can't think of others, but certainly Max Holloway's up there, but I know there's got to be a better one. I just can't think of them right now, but if it comes to mind, I'll let you guys know. Let's see here. Good point here by Muhammad. Hello, man. Max versus Kattar was great, but I'm not trying to take anything away from Max. He's a monster, but it's amazing how Volkanovski shuts down Holloway's scary arsenal. And yeah, and I thought about tweeting this, but I don't know why I didn't. I think I was just too shocked about how good Holloway looked. But this is also a good indication of how good that champion is, right? He might have the most fan-friendly style, Volkanovski, but clearly to do what he did against Holloway and then seeing how good Holloway is and what levels he can actually reach. Clearly, I mean, the champion is champion. He's worthy of being a title holder. I know he gets a lot of hate from the fan base and a lot of people that think that Holloway's the uncrowned champion and he should have won those decisions. But truly, Volkanovski is a great fighter, one of the best fighters today in the UFC. Certainly the best fighter probably at 145 pounds today. I think it's between him or Holloway. He's got the wins to back it up, so I got to go with the proof, so I'm going to go Volkanovski. But you see Holloway do what he did tonight, and you wonder, right? Like, he could definitely take away that title from Volkanovski. And again, it's not because Volkanovski ain't good. It's just that's how good Holloway looked. But Volkanovski's up there, man. He's a fucking beast. The guy is really, really good. And I think him beating Holloway twice and then Holloway doing what he did tonight just makes him look even better. So yeah, Volkanovski's super legit, and that needs to be said more. Good question, Muhammad. Who is best boxer, Conor or Max? Ooh, good question. I think Max might be. I think I mean, if you just look at the way he was mixing it up against the body, everything. I think Max Holloway is just all around just a fantastic striker. I think what might make Conor a lot more dangerous is the power, right? He's got power and he's got more precision, right? He picks his shots. He picks his shots a lot better. He's got better timing than Holloway. I think Holloway has good timing as well, but I think maybe he makes up a little bit more with the volume, right? So he might not land as much, but he strikes so much and his output is so high that eventually he's going to tag you a shit ton, right? He's going to tag you a lot. Whereas Conor, he really makes his shots count because he doesn't have as deep of a gas tank as Holloway. He doesn't have the volume, but he makes up for it with power. So I would say they're very different boxers, but if I had to pick one, I think probably Max is a little better in my opinion. But I mean, as far as the timing, Conor's got some of the best timing in MMA. Are you Tom's little brother? I'm guessing you're asking about Tom Segura. No, but I get that a lot. We might be related. Who knows? I think he's got some Hispanic blood, right? Like he's like Peruvian or some shit. I'm Colombian, so probably not. Let's see here. Kevin Fuentes, all those fighters have been dropped. You're right. Yeah, I mean, Holloway's got a pretty good chin. He's up there. I just have a feeling there's got to be somebody else that we're not thinking of. Khabib's never been dropped. Never been really rocked. Now, granted, he doesn't take that many shots because that's how good he is, but Khabib's got a pretty good chin. All right, I'm going to call it quits here unless anybody has any other questions they want to throw my way. Going once, going twice. All right, I'm calling it quits here. Remember, please give a like to this video, subscribe to the channel. More content is coming your way, whether it's reactions to these events, reaction to news. We still got the weekly live chat going on. I'm still keeping that as far as for now. I'm going to make some changes. Just know that ahead of time. I think I got to reinvent some stuff. But all in all, for the next few weeks, you can count on it on Tuesdays. And yeah, this Tuesday should be at 10:30 a.m. I believe my schedule is good to go for that. So I'll confirm later in the week, probably on Monday. So keep in mind on that. I'll post it on my Twitter timeline. So again, remember, follow me on Twitter if you haven't already. Instagram, Facebook, the whole thing. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Have a safe weekend. Love you all. I'm out.